I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name's Dean Rosenthal. I'm the Fisheries Division Administrator located in the Lincoln office here. I really appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to attend this informational meeting. One of the things we want to get out of this meeting is input from you anglers. Find out, your concerns, your issues, ideas as we move forward. We have a number of these scheduled this week. We're doing each district, starting with the Southeast District tonight at 7 o'clock, and then the Northeast District tomorrow night, the Northwest District the following, and we'll finish up with the Southwest District on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. All the start times are 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. And so if you have interest in a particular area, I suggest you register for those areas. They'll cover more in depth the projects and the fishing forecast for those particular areas. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started with this meeting. I will explain a little bit on Zoom as we go through. Meeting agenda, we'll have, basically, I'm not going to introduce all the staff that's online right now, but we have representation of fisheries staff, law enforcement staff, wildlife staff from across the state. So depending on the area of interest or anything, we have people online that would be able to help answer any questions. We'll do a divisional review, overview of the Fisheries Division, highlights from around the state, fishing outlook in general, and then the question and answers. I want to go a little bit on how Zoom operates if you're not familiar with it, so that you have an understanding of how things are going to work. This is an example screen, and I'm going to ask everybody to mute their screen using the little speaker in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. I'm also going to ask that you stop your video. It'll just make it a lot easier as far as bandwidth and stuff, so that things move along a little easier. To use the chat button, you simply click on the chat button and you can enter in a question or a comment. We do ask that when you do, start with either the word question or comment so we can narrow those things out really quick. We'll try and pause at certain times through the discussions to answer particular questions and stuff as we move along. We have somebody that'll be monitoring those, and that way we kind of keep up on things as we go. Also, there's a reaction button that you can use to hold your hand up. If you have a question, we have somebody that'll be monitoring and try and watch for those things. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tony, and he'll introduce and get started.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Thanks, Dean. And like Dean said, this presentation is going to be more of the precursor, laying the groundwork for a lot of what we're going to talk about more in detail at our district meetings. But we just wanted to give you guys and gals an idea of how we function as a division and some of the highlights of what's going on around the state in advance of our district meetings. So funding for our fisheries division is really primarily user fee based. Let's see here. So basically we rely on fishing license sales in addition to our sport fish restoration program, which That's a program, a federally funded program that distributes funds to state agencies that collect excise taxes from fishing tackle and equipment, including boats and even motorboat fuel taxes. We also have aquatic invasive species fees, including resident registration on your boats, as well as non-resident boat stickers that help fund our aquatic invasive species. And then we rely on a lot of public and private partnerships, collaborations, and other grant opportunities to help expand our and increase the capacity of our programs. The basic structure of our division, we have three major sections, and that's our fish management, fish production, which is our hatchery system, and then our fisheries research. I'll go into detail on each of these a little bit more as we move through the presentation. We also have an aquatic education program, as well as an outreach. And in addition to these different sections within the fisheries, we work very closely with our parks, wildlife, law enforcement, and a lot of other divisions within the game and parks to help us accomplish our mission, which is to protect, manage, and enhance Nebraska's aquatic resources for the long-term benefit of our constituents. So diving in a little bit more detail into our management section, we have four main districts split up here, as you can see, outlined with each of our borders. So we have a northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest district. Within those districts, the fisheries management staff conduct a lot of fish population monitoring. We sample fish populations using a variety of different gears. In 2020 alone, we sampled over 250, or we had over 250 individual fish population surveys from 140 different water bodies. These surveys can be very time intensive and manpower intensive, and we're really proud of the work we were able to get done amidst a lot of different restrictions due to COVID, but we were able to still be very safe in some of the things that we were able to do and get a lot of work done to help these fisheries and keep monitoring them. We take these fish population surveys, and the information helps us guide management and implement different strategies. And that includes, different regulation implementations like bag and length limits. We also, it also helps us implement and provide recommendations for stocking, as well as potential full lake renovations or aquatic habitat enhancements. Speaking of aquatic habitat enhancement, we have a nationally recognized program within the Game and Parks Commission, our Aquatic Habitat Program. It started back in 1997 with a simple aquatic habitat stamp, and it has only gained in momentum in the amount of projects and quality projects that program has accomplished over time. In addition to that, we have angler access and boating access programs as well. And all of these things together help us really provide good opportunities for our anglers out there utilizing our public waters. Like I said, since 1997, this aquatic habitat program has been in place, and we've conducted a lot of work. There's been a tremendous amount of work over the years, obviously with this depiction geographically spread across the state. And we've utilized and had great partnerships and collaborations with a lot of different public and private entities over this time. In 2021 alone, we have over 40 projects going on, broken down into a mixture of full aquatic habitat projects, cool water streams projects, boating access, and as well as planning phases of new reservoir construction. Within our management section also lies our aquatic invasive species program. And we've just recently hired a new program manager to help conduct a lot of the activities of this program. And that is, to really first and foremost is to educate, provide education and outreach to the public on aquatic invasive species concerns. That's via conducting voter surveys and inspections and providing those materials. We also do species monitoring efforts, including zebra and quagga mussel veliger sampling for their larvae, as well as Asian carp distribution monitoring. And what's going to be new this year is more of a focus on our aquatic vegetation in our state. And everybody's reminded for aquatic invasive species sightings and questions to utilize this email ngpc.ais for those concerns. Also within our management section, we have our private waters program that provides a lot of technical assistance to landowners wanting to manage their ponds and lakes. As we know, these are very important fisheries in our state as well. Moving on to our production section, we have 5 hatcheries positioned around the state. Each propagate, produce, raise, and distribute certain species of fish to do that do best within their systems and facilities. They provide stocking for initial stocking, supplemental stockings, routine stockings within our water bodies, and our production team is continually using innovative techniques and practices to produce more fish and larger fish. For example, our crew has been raising a lot of what we call advanced fingerling size fish, whether that's walleyes, northern pike, muskellunge, sawguys, and the like, that provide the best survival opportunities at a number of our different water bodies. And they're utilizing a lot of great techniques and putting in a lot of effort for that. This is a depiction of our 2020 fish stocking locations. Once again, this team really did a great job amongst a lot of different challenges due to COVID, but we were still able to raise and distribute fish throughout the state to benefit the anglers. Something that's very timely is our March seasonal trout stockings that are coming up as soon as, I guess, next week of March 8th. And I'm going to throw up some locations, numbers of fish going in, and I'm going to go through these fairly quick, just in the matter of time. But know that in the end, we'll have a link that we'll post, so you can go to our website to look at these stocking locations and the plan of attack for our trout stockings. So the wake of March 8th includes quite a few water bodies that we'll get started with. And then the week of March 15th is even a greater amount of water bodies where we'll be stocking these catchable size rainbow trout into waters where really they provide a great opportunity for all types of anglers, whether it's somebody that wants to get out and about just because they have cabin fever, or they want to take somebody new fishing, a kid fishing, those sort of things. These trout stockings are great for those opportunities. Continuing on, the week of March 15th, we have a slew of different water bodies from across the state that will be getting fish. And then on into the week of March 22nd, and then additional March stockings that happen throughout the month. But our seasonal trout stocking doesn't stop in March. We also have a slew of water bodies that will get fish as well in April. And once again, I'm breezing over this fairly quickly, but we will provide links in the chat and on this talk, so you can go to our website and find these exact locations and at least general timeframes. One thing that our anglers like to utilize, and if some of you may have already and some may not, but we have a actual stocking database that's available to the public actually go in, type in your favorite water body, the different years, look at species just to see what's been stocked at that location in the past. And this is a link that that you can click on, and it'll help you find that information. Moving on from production into our research section coordinates statewide investigations on lakes and reservoirs, rivers and streams. We have a rivers and streams program that focuses on not only cool water streams, but also warm water streams and rivers, looking at fish population surveys, aquatic habitat, and even aiding and facilitating different projects on these types of streams. Our Missouri River program falls under our research section as well. We have a lot of work that's been going on with the federally endangered pallid sturgeon monitoring efforts, as well as other native fish within the Missouri River. And the Missouri River program also focuses on some of our sport fish, like our paddlefish, as well as our different catfish species within the Missouri River. In addition to those programs, we also do a lot of data management, the needed data management and analysis with a number of folks within our research section. We collaborate and contract applied research with universities. A few of the universities that we currently are working with is University of Nebraska Kearney, University of Nebraska Lincoln, and the Nebraska Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit at the University of Nebraska Lincoln. And it's great that we have well-respected experts in a lot of different fisheries realms that we can rely on and have them conduct research for us to guide some of our management. Just going to go over a few research projects very quickly. We have a long-term monitoring project at Harlan County Reservoir that's been going on for, I think, close to 20 years now. We have a fairly new, probably within the last 6 or so years, Lake McConaughey project that has focused on walleye and white bass stocking survival and recruitment within the reservoir and within the North Platte River and different tributaries. We're starting up a new Asian carp distribution study within the state with this aquatic invasive species. We know a lot about them, but we want to know a lot more about their distribution and population characteristics in our rivers and streams. We also have our angler survey that is primarily based in the Omaha metro area this year, where we're wanting to collect human dimensions data and help us guide some of our management in the urban setting. We have a few projects going on looking at aquatic habitat or artificial habitat introductions into lakes and reservoirs and seeing how those impact our sport fish community and aquatic community as a whole. And then one other one to mention is a project that we are collaborating with the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks and the University of Nebraska Lincoln on for a sauger and walleye habitat and movement study in Lewis and Clark Lake in the Missouri River. And all of like I said, all of these projects really help us get results and we gain that knowledge to better manage these systems moving forward. Moving into our fisheries education portion of our talk, this is kind of a one man crew. However, Larry relies heavily on our volunteer base to help out with a lot of different events. Obviously, this last year, the in-person events had to change quite a bit, and different things were done to meet the needs of the anglers. But in a typical year, there's a lot of different community fishing nights, our Carporama, and a lot of different other events that are special for a specific topic, like fish cleaning and different types of unique fishing opportunities. And then we also have, like I mentioned before, our outreach, where this is a one-man crew that a lot of our other staff help Daryl Bauer out with giving talks and seminars, providing information and articles within Nebraska land, um, producing a fishing forecast, producing how-to and other types of videos for our YouTube channel, providing information and feedback on our Nebraska fishing Facebook page. And then also Daryl has a blog he regularly posts. So we just try to find a lot of different avenues to get information out to you, the anglers. So I just want to do a quick kind of round robin to highlight some of the things that are happening in the different districts that may directly impact anglers. Like we said, we'll go into more detail on these in these evening meetings for each of the districts, but just wanted to give you an idea of what's going on around the state. So in the Northeast District, kind of directly in response to some feedback that we've had from some of these public meetings at Swan Lake, we've had a boating access enhancement project that was conducted there that's sure to benefit the anglers moving forward, in addition to a carp barrier that was put in at the lake as well. Another thing that we have going on in the Northeast District is we're in the planning phases of sediment basin maintenance project at Summit Lake, where with these large aquatic habitat projects, we like to protect the reservoir proper. So there's a lot of times, a project goes on and we collect sediment that's been protecting the reservoir. So those need maintenance over time, and that's in the planning phases there. In the Southeast District, Conestoga Reservoir Aquatic Habitat Project has been completed. The fishery is developing, and really there's been some beautiful results from that large aquatic habitat project, and we encourage folks to go out there and check it out. We also have some new reservoirs in the Papillion area, Portal Lake and Big Elk Lake, where the NRD has built these new reservoirs in small watersheds, and it's given us an opportunity to diversify some of the fisheries in the Omaha metro area, where we're attempting some smallmouth bass and yellow perch fisheries, which is exciting. In the Southwest District, in addition to research, like I mentioned before, Lake McConaughey is also undergoing some major improvements for boating and angler access features at a number of the different locations along the lake. And this work is in a lot of these different projects. So we work closely with our other divisions like parks and engineering to make these improvements on these water bodies. In addition to that, Sherman Reservoir, we had some boat dock upgrades, and the major wave attenuation structure was repaired and maintenance done on that this past year. And then, like I mentioned before, in addition to artificial habitat research that's going on at Harlan County Reservoir and other lakes, we also are working with the Bureau of Reclamation at many of their reservoirs to install artificial habitat structures in a number of those reservoirs in the southwest portion of the state. And that'll be upcoming and going on for the next few years. In the Northwest, we've completed phase 1 of our Fort Robinson project. And these ponds, the Grable ponds and a few of the other ponds had some major enhancements done to them. And then also our Valentine National Wildlife Refuge aquatic habitat project continues, although it has been delayed due to very wet conditions. So we hope to continue that project in 2021. The Dry Spotted Tail project has been a major collaborative effort on Platte River Basin Environment's property, where where a new meandering stream has been created, improving habitat for trout and native fish alike. So just a few additional things from an overall statewide basis. 2020 was a year like no other, obviously, and there was more people out and about fishing, and our permit sales showed that. So with the new anglers out there, we asked those of you out there to be patient, lend a helping hand when possible. There's likely to be a lot of different teaching moments as we go into 2021. And our education division, or our aquatic education, has worked closely with communications to provide different fishing articles and how-tos. And those are all posted on our website to help out folks that are new to angling. Just want to mention, we had 9 state records in total this year, with a few that were really neat to see. The one in particular was Lake McConaughey state record wiper. And then we had a state record flathead catfish caught out of the Missouri River. Looking ahead to 2021, just a few regulation changes. 2 of them related to the new reservoirs in Omaha, as I mentioned, with some different smallmouth bass and yellow perch regulations. We recently stocked tiger muskellunge in Pelican Lake, and we have a new regulation on Pelican Lake for tiger muskie. And then we rescinded a northern pike regulation, a special regulation on an I-80 lake, and then we added some no live bait fish waters as well. So for the fishing outlook, we produce this fishing forecast every year, and it gives us some of the areas in comparison to others where there's likely good populations of fish. I asked our district biologist to kind of come up with a top list of waters for 2021. They didn't particularly like this procedure, this exercise, but because I only allowed them to pick 1 lake per district for a top water to go for a particular species. But I just wanted to provide this information as just a quick hitter on, hey, if you were going to go fish for walleye, where would you go in a particular district? So for walleye, this is information that's coming from our district biologist based on survey results, anecdotal angler information, history, that sort of thing. These are the different water bodies in each of the districts that they would send you to: Calamus, Yankee Hill, McConaughey, and Merritt. And a few of these fish species I'm running down are basically the most preferred fish species that folks fish for in the state, according to surveys. So our largemouth bass, the top waters would be Summit, Burchard, Swanson, and Avocet. For our crappies, it would be Willow Creek, East Twin, Sherman, and Whitney. Channel catfish, any number of our flood control reservoirs in the Northeast, as well as the Missouri River, Wildwood Lake in the Southeast, and then the Power and Irrigation District Canal Lakes in the Southwest, and Box Butte is a perennial power for channel catfish in the Northwest. Bluegill, we have a number of lakes. I don't have to go through them all, but Cramper, Duck Creek, the I-80 lakes, and then a few there in the Northwest with Box Butte and Smith Lake. And then the last one, our last species that we'll cover is white bass, which Calamus, East Twin. We listed East Twin for the Southeast. It's the only water body really in the Southeast that has white bass, and then Harlan and Whitney for Southwest and Northwest. As I wrap things up, we just wanted to mention that we have our Take 'em Fishing campaign that'll be going on again in 2021. This has been a very successful program that's been conducted the past couple years. last year we had 6,700 entries, in which 2,300 of those entries were first-time anglers. So it's really gaining popularity in taking new folks fishing and actually being able to enter these fishing excursions online to potentially win prizes. And the past couple of years, our top prize has been a bass tracker boat that's been donated by the Nebraska Game and Parks Foundation, as well as Bass Pro and Cabela's. And then this is one last plug for attending a district meeting. We'll have the link right there. We'll have it posted in the chat as well. But if you haven't clicked on the link to register for any of the other meetings, we invite you to provide detailed information from us, and then us to be able to get some of that feedback from you. So with that, I think we'll turn it over for questions. We have Jordan Cott, who is going to be moderating and asking questions. And like Dean said, we have a number of folks from all across our division that will be on board to help answer a lot of the detailed questions that you may have.
All right, so we have a few rolling in here. Let's start off first. Does the pallid sturgeon broodstock effort still provide opportunity for non-game and park staffed volunteers, or will it begin with that volunteer format again someday? I guess I did not see if anybody from our Missouri River office is on. I think I saw Kirk on there, but I don't recall.
Yeah, go. If Kirk, if you're on, go ahead and take the mic.
Yeah, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for the bad news, but no, we had to actually end that volunteer opportunity a few years ago. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineer funds most of our Missouri River pallid sturgeon work. And as those funds got minimized and our required sampling efforts increased, we don't have that 2-week window available in there for this effort.
All right. Thank you. Another one is a recording of this call going to be available somewhere online?
And yes, I can answer that. It will be. It'll be on our YouTube page, and we have I can't remember. There's a specific spot within our Nebraska Game and Parks YouTube channel that hosts these types of presentations. So if you can go to that, I think Jordan,
we put the link.
Put that in the chat.
Yeah, we put the link in the chat. So if you scroll through there, you'll be able to locate that. Let's see here. Going back to the Summit Lake project, are there any plans to add underwater structure during that project with the sediment basin removals? I saw some of the Norfolk guys were on there. Jeff or Phil, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Parks Division this winter has put in a bunch of cedar tree piles. They did a cedar tree removal project down there on the uplands and put them out on the lake. And we do actually have a map that they provided us where they put those. And we could probably get that to Bauer and put that online so people can see where we did that. But yeah, that's always an ongoing thing in a lot of our reservoirs. Whenever there's some cedar trees taken out nearby, it's best to put them in the lake for some habitat. So yeah, good question, and we are doing that. Now I have some more information on Summit Lake tomorrow night when we give our district updates. Some other things we might have going on down there.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. So this next question refers to the Flanagan Lake survey results. So if you're not from the Omaha area, you may not know about this. The Southeast District is currently conducting a survey about fisheries management at Flanagan Reservoir. And so the question is wanting to know if the results of that survey are in. Jeff Jackson, are you on? You want to address that, or any of the Southeast guys? There you go, Jeff.
Yeah, I can probably address that. We just have some preliminary results, and I have more details on that for the Southeast presentation. I don't have them available right here now, but we sent out about 33,000 emails to individuals primarily around the Omaha metro, and we've got about 10% response rate so far. So if you haven't had a chance to respond to that, please do. And one thing I've been asking people is to check their trash file, because sometimes emails get directed back into those and then doesn't look like that they've been sent. So anyway, please respond if you have an opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. All right, here's one. Tony, you'll probably need to address this one. So a number of our contour maps on our Game and Parks website seem to be outdated. Is there a project underway or anything in the planning stages to try and bring these maps more current with contour lines, water depths, structures, other habitat features, that sort of thing?
The one thing that I'll say is that with any aquatic habitat project that we have go on at a reservoir or lake, we usually include that sort of information within the package of the final product. So we continue to update reservoirs and lakes that have projects on them that we're already collecting, the survey information on. As far as larger reservoirs or ones that we don't have planned projects on, we don't have any major plans to do that. However, there is some new technology that some of our district biologists have been dabbling in that basically you can collect bathymetry data or lake contour data with, standard or consumer grade sonar units. So we've had a number of those done in the past few years where we haven't contracted out. We've had our district biologists do them themselves, and we'll continue to look at that method to update some of them. Some of the bigger reservoirs, like our larger irrigation or power reservoirs, it may require a collaboration between the entities that own the dam and us as well.
Here is a question about, is it legal in Nebraska to take fish by a sling bow? And I know we have a couple CEOs online here. I know Mike, you responded online. Would you care to jump on here and address the whole group?
Yeah, so under the current definitions of the regulation, it has to be a hand-drawn bow, and sling bows just don't meet the definition of what our requirements are, just as I mentioned in the post. So good question, though. I get about a handful of those every year, especially as the spring fishing season starts.
Thank you. All right, this is a good one for Tony and or Dean. With the added fish pressure of added additional licenses, what actions are expected to offset, such as adjusted limits, additional stocking, that sort of thing for management actions?
The one thing that we do, I mean, that we continue to do is monitor fish populations, and we were unsure on how this last year, you know, with our fall gill netting efforts, especially with for walleye populations, how that was going to look after some of the seemed to be extreme pressure at some of our larger reservoirs, and we basically just continue to monitor that and adjust, like you said, like in the question, adjust stocking recommendations and that sort of thing in accordance. As a general to summarize some of our information, we didn't see huge drop-offs in a lot of our catch efforts in our surveys. So it didn't require a lot of change, but you know, if we continue to see increased pressure and potentially increased harvest, we'll be able to kind of track that through our different sampling and monitoring efforts. If any of the other guys have anything to add, please chime in as well.
Tony, one thing that also that some of our surveys brought up was a lot of the new anglers, their trip length was a lot shorter than our seasoned anglers. So they did not spend as much time out there fishing and as much time on the water as a lot of our seasoned anglers do. And therefore the catch rates and everything were probably not anywhere near what you'd normally see with a seasoned angler.
All right. Here's one for the Southeast guys. Are walleye being stocked in Burchard Lake? And if not, what's the reasoning?
I can jump in on this one. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So yeah, we're gonna be talking a little bit more about this tonight too in the Southeast District meeting, but advanced fingerling walleyes have been stocked at Burchard since 2015. The last survey we conducted was in 2019, and we had a catch rate of about 13 and a half to 14 fish per net. And eight of that 13 were over 15 inches. So it's got a pretty decent walleye population going down there. And I know reports from some family member and friends that people were catching walleyes down there in the last couple of years and some nice fish to boot. So.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, here's one for our Northwest guys about muskie in Merritt, I guess. Very impressed with the efforts in muskie stocking throughout the state and the new 50-inch minimum at Merritt. Will we ever be able to make the statewide length limit? I'm assuming 50. We have quite a few other lakes in the state that have a substantial number of fish over 40, and we need to protect those fish. So I guess maybe that's more of a statewide Tony question.
Yeah, I can let the guys from Northwest at least comment on the quality of fish that they have at Merritt, but yeah, there are a number of areas that do produce over 40-inch fish. What we wanted to do specifically at Merritt was protect those largest individuals for the trophy opportunity and knowing that it's a destination fishery that folks are going to. So we haven't really explored the opportunity for the 50-inch minimum elsewhere, but it doesn't mean that we won't in the future.
Tony, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, just elaborate on that a little bit. Merritt and Cottonwood Stevenson Lakes have a tremendous muskie population. And the plan was in 2020 to start a research project on those lakes to look at how that regulation was working, especially at Merritt. We'll elaborate a little more at our Northwest meeting, but we're gonna look at stuff like how fast they can grow, how old these muskie are getting, and also if these muskie can reproduce in these habitats in Northwest Nebraska.
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. All right. What are the biggest threats you see to our Nebraska fisheries in the next 5 to 10 years? Is it funding, invasives, runoff and water quality? Also, for someone wanting to get into a career related to fish and wildlife, is the field pretty tough to get into and are jobs readily available? That's sounds like a good administration question.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Thanks, Jordan. The answer to the first part, the next 5 to 10 years, is pretty much yes to about every one of them. Funding is always an issue. Our permit sales has steadily declined over the last number of years. This last year with the pandemic was much better than anticipated, and we had a major jump in our permit sales. Now our major effort is to retain some of these new anglers and reactivated anglers that came back into our permit buying numbers. Water is always an issue. We don't control the water. We don't control the water quality. We work very hard. Mark Porath does our aquatic habitat program, and he is doing a fantastic job of including the watershed projects and sediment nutrient dikes and stuff in the projects to try and protect our lakes as we redo these lakes, because a lot of that was not taken into consideration when these lakes were first initially built. Invasive species, that's going to be an issue that is yet to see how some of it's going to impact us, but we have to believe very strongly that these things will impact us. It's been shown in other states, the long-term impacts of some of these species. And it's something that we've been very, very fortunate, blessed, however you want to put it, that we have not had as many positive findings of zebra or quagga mussels in the state. So we've been very, very fortunate in that. It's kind of all around us, and we've been very fortunate. I got to give our anglers and boaters a lot of credit, because that's how it's typically gets spread, is our boating anglers and our recreational boaters. And we've been very, very fortunate. And you got to give it credit that they're understanding the importance of the Clean Drain Dry program. And so we've been very, very blessed in that aspect. But at some point, we will have to deal with it. We had a few lakes so far that we've dealt with it, where we've been able to drain those lakes and impact them, but we cannot do that with the majority of our lakes. So at some point, we probably will have to be dealing with those. As far as getting into the career, it's a difficult field to get into, as any of our field staff will probably tell you. Most people in this agency are long-term employees. It's a career, it's a profession. It's not a job, it's more of a profession. And you have to have a degree. It's a tough field. A lot of our applicants, you will have, in some cases, 50 to 60 applicants per job announcement. So it's tough to get into. but anytime you have the opportunity to, get your degree, move forward, do the best you can, make acquaintances with our field people, our administration, we're open. We're available to talk to. That's one thing that I think our agency is very good at as far as communicating with our public, communicating with people that have questions. But it is difficult to get into. And I'll give you that. If you're in it for making a lot of money and buying an expensive boat and truck, you might want to consider another profession. But overall, it's a great job. And for those who've been around a long time, would attest to that. I hope, Paul, that kind of answers your questions. If not, hit me up and I'll try and answer them better. Thanks.
Thanks, Dean. Here's one for some of our folks out west. Why are stocking numbers down for walleye at Lake McConaughey compared to what they were back in the late 90s? Back in 98, McConaughey received almost 2.7 million walleye. And back in 2019, it only received 1.8 million. I don't, somebody in our Southwest office want to tackle that one, or Tony, do you want to try to tackle that one? There we go. Hey, Brad.
Hi, this is Brad Newcomb and Kearney. I'll try to address that. And the numbers vary quite a bit in McConaughey based on the lake level. We stock a certain number per surface acres, and that varies quite a bit in some of our irrigation reservoirs. So I'd have to look specifically, but I'm guessing 98, the lake was full, and we'd be stocking maximum numbers because of the number per surface acre. So that's a lot. That's likely the reason why we haven't changed stocking rate much at that lake. And sometimes we do have some availability issues. If we run short, and McConaughey being the big number it is, it might get cut somewhat in some years because of hatchery availability. But because of those two reasons, those numbers do fluctuate.
Thanks, Brad. All right, here's a general bass management question, Tony. Would Game and Parks ever consider creating a slot limit on certain lakes to help promote growth on largemouth bass? A good example of this is Lake Mozingo in Missouri.
I know in the past and in through a lot of different studies, not just in Nebraska, but Midwest and even in the South, the key to slot limits, especially with largemouth bass, is if the anglers will actually harvest the fish. We've come to a point where bass harvest seems to be not the thing to do. So in order for something like that to work, if implemented, we have to still have folks willing to actually harvest, a 12 to 16 inch bass. And I know in previous research, it was shown that a lot of times those anglers weren't willing to do that, so it didn't affect the population as much. We definitely want to diversify fisheries, not only for different species, but also different opportunities, for trophy fish, but also allow harvest. So it's one of those things that we will continue to look at and potentially dabble in. I can't say specifically if we'll try or put something on as far as a slot limit for bass, but it's one of our goals as a fisheries division is to continue to diversify our fisheries in response to what the anglers want.
We'll go back to the Kearney office for this one. Any thought to stocking wipers in Sherman to help with the bait fish population out there? It seems like in late August, September, October, it's about impossible to catch a walleye due to the excessive bait fish population.
Yeah, no, we don't have any plans right now to stock wipers into Sherman Reservoir. And typically we do see a lot of bait fish there in the fall, but we also tend to lose a lot of our gizzard shad in that lake over the winter. So, our bait fish numbers are pretty low in the spring, and I guess we just don't feel like we have a high enough forage base in there to support wipers and white bass and walleyes. And our management goal right now is to concentrate on the walleye fishery and the crappie fishery with white bass also. So no plans in the near future to stock wipers in Sherman.
Okay. Thank you. Tony, what program or programs do we use to perform our statistical analysis of our fisheries data?
There's a number of different programs that, depending on the educational background or the different professional development that folks have done within our division will utilize. We have a basic program that has kind of some canned statistical analysis that helps us produce catch rates and age and growth information for our fish populations. But then there's some specific analyses within program R and different packages within that. We also have a tool called FAMS. It's Fisheries Analysis. What does it all stand for, Jordan?
And modeling simulator.
So there's a fisheries analysis modeling simulator where you can input different things from the data that you collect from your fish population surveys that help you model different regulations and see how they would respond to a specific minimum length limit or such. So we have that as well. I was just checking to see if Keith Hurley was on, and he wasn't. One of our data gurus and database managers to expound upon, but there's a lot of different ways that we can manipulate and analyze our data, and it all depends on the individual and how they're comfortable with utilizing that. If anybody else has anything to expand on, feel free.
Some of us still use SAS too, statistical analysis software. But it's transitioning over to R.
With more anglers getting into the live imaging sonar, such as Live Scope and Lowrance's Active Target, what is being done to protect over harvest? And I guess we'll just address that one first, and then there's another question tied to that.
The biggest thing with that, and I know I realize, or we realize as a fisheries profession, even this is a big topic as you look at fisheries as a whole nationwide, and that sort of technology that keeps coming out makes those fish populations more vulnerable. However, what we're going to continue to do, and what we've done in the past, and Daryl's done a good job of doing this, is preaching selective harvest. Harvesting fish that you're going to take home and eat, not over harvesting or harvest just to harvest. And in addition, one of my colleagues also stated, and it's been a long time running kind of coined term that's data driven, is that really 10% of our anglers harvest 90% of the fish. So it's one of those things where if we can get at that 10% of anglers that are avid, that are out there utilizing some of this equipment, continuing, and a lot of these folks are conservation minded, that if we can continue to hammer at selective harvest, we're hoping that we can continue to sustain populations of fish in our lakes and reservoirs and rivers. I don't know. We haven't got to that point of that sort of gear restrictions or anything at all at this point. But it is something that is floating around, and a lot of discussions are being had at the state and national level on this topic.
Okay. And in addition, when muskies are stocked, what strain are they? Not talking about tiger muskies, which are obviously a hybrid, but what strain, such as Leash Lake, Great Lake, that sort of thing?
Jordan, I'll take that one.
Yep.
Those are Spirit Lake out of Iowa. Is the strain that we've used in the past. We're currently looking to utilize that same strain, only harvested within the state and the spawn taken from fish within the state.
All right. Thanks, Dean. How are permit numbers doing this year? Are they tracking the same as 2020, or is it too early to tell?
Again, I'll take that one.
Okay.
Actually, we only have the January figures right now. We are another day or two out from getting the February ones. But as of right now, we're down slightly from January of 2020 compared to, this year. So we're down just a little bit. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we are down slightly.
Okay. Here's one for the Southeast guys. Do you have any information on the fish numbers and type of fish in Prairie Queen over in Papillion?
Yeah, Jordan, I can take that one. So
okay.
Just kind of like some of the main species in Prairie Queen, walleye, catfish, largemouth bass, crappie, bluegill. Do have some red ear sunfish in there as well. We were out there sampling it in 2019, and some of our survey results came back. We had about 10 walleye per net, per gill net, so that was good with our management objectives. And then also we had about 10 catfish per net as well. So overall, the fisheries looking pretty good.
Thank you, Matthew. Another one for the Southeast guys. Is there any discussion in the years ahead to allow some pike to be kept at Wanahoo, or will this always remain as a catch and release fishery to maintain the trophy pike lake?
Yep. So this is Jeff Jackson, Southeast. We've been every spring we do some population estimates on the northern pike in Wanahoo, and we kind of fluctuate right around a couple thousand fish in the reservoir. So we don't feel like we could sustain very much harvest on that fish population at all at this point. We're pretty pleased that we're being able to maintain that with some of our stockings, but it's really providing just a trophy pike opportunity right now for the Southeast. And on top of that, it's a fairly unique fishery to the Southeast. We don't have a lot of other northern pike fisheries in the area. So at this point, I don't think we're really contemplating harvest. If we did, it would have to be a pretty high minimum length limit to be able to maintain that population.
You're muted there, Jordan.
Tony or Jeff Shuckman may be able to handle this one. Is Game and Parks participating in any efforts on the Nebraska-South Dakota border and dredging the Missouri River, specifically from Niobrara to Santee, as those areas were heavily affected by the floods in 2019.
I wouldn't say we're not starting up any projects thing. We're sitting on some of the meetings that are taking place up there with the MSAC group. And we're actually contributing some funding towards that group, along with other entities, including the state of South Dakota, to come up with a sediment management plan. That's the goal. And see what functionally can be done up there. I think a lot of people have different ideas on what to do, whether it's dredging or pipeline or whatever it might be. It's a very complicated subject that's been going on for a decade or two now. And all I can say is we're still cooperating with other agencies and the Corps of Engineers to figure out what can happen. 2019 flooding did change a lot of habitat up there, moved a lot of the sand farther down into the reservoir. However, those people that fish the delta up there from Springfield to Niobrara know that that's awful good fishing. And right now that's the go-to place many times. The movement study that we're going to begin with South Dakota up there will show us some more information on where fish, the sauger and walleye are hanging out. But right now we've got some overall issues in Lewis and Clark with prey abundance and our walleye numbers in that lake, but they're good up above. So while we try to figure out how to sustain the lake so it doesn't get worse, also realize that in that Delta region is almost a fish and wildlife mecca at this point, in my opinion. So it's not all bad. We just don't want it to completely take the lake away. That would not be good for all recreational users. So it's something we're working with people going forward, see what we can do and come up with.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Touching on the permit sales last year again and the increase, were most of those annual or multi-year permits or combo permits? Just touch on what type they were, I guess.
Jordan, I can take that. This is Dean.
Yep.
We saw basically an increase across the board on all types of permits. Where we saw the biggest increase, or I maybe shouldn't say the biggest increase, but the most interesting increases were in the 3 and the 5 year permit sales. Those numbers went up quite a bit in comparison to some of the other permits. The 1 and the 3 day probably had the least increase, but the annual and the 3 year and the 5 year saw a good increase. So it wasn't the single and 3 day permits as much as the annual and the multi-year.
Thanks, Dean. For the Northwest guys, any carp renovation plans for Cottonwood Steverson?
Yeah, Jordan, I can take that. We do have a plan for Cottonwood Stevenson Lakes to be renovated in the future. It's on our aquatic habitat list. Just right now, if you've been up there lately, our lakes are really, really high. But it is on our radar and hopefully get that treated here in the next few years.
There seems to be more instances of littering on certain lakes. Are there any plans for targeted enforcement of those laws? Or get the news on these lakes to just to try to get these folks to stop littering? I can tell you that's been just a continually issue no matter what you do. I see Officer Tomei's responded on the message. You care to briefly comment to the group as well again? 'Cause,
No, I'd say all the anglers around, most people are frustrated with that. I know our staff in every division is constantly battling it, like you mentioned, with littering issues. It seems to have gotten worse in my estimation over the years, but our guys are constantly trying to work those. They're difficult cases to work because a lot of times you're hoping to be in the right place at the right time. So like I mentioned in my post, trying to, carry that message to the rest of the anglers that or people around you about how it's detrimental to locations as far as, occasionally we've had to shut places down or another agency that allows access on their properties. They shut down access because of the trash problems, not to mention the biological issues with that litter. Just try and get that word out and let us know if you have some specific incidents, and report them in a timely manner so it gives us the best chance at catching those responsible, because like you guys, we hate seeing that type of activity ruin it for everybody else. So
Thank you. Tony, has there been any consideration to splitting the panfish combined limit back to a species-based limit? It seems specific species become the entire bag in most cases, especially during ice fishing season.
There hasn't been any recent conversations or discussions about that. I think when it originally came down, or when it was combined and reduced to 15 in combination, it was based on what's a good good number or mess of fish that would be potential for somebody to harvest and eat and that sort of thing. And I think we would be reverting back if we started to split that up for individual species again and allowing that much more harvest. So at this point, we aren't discussing that, but it's one of those things where as we evolve, our fisheries evolve, and different strategies and priorities change. I'd just say never.
Another law enforcement question. Is it acceptable to harvest a non-legal fish if you know it's not going to survive, such as a gut-hooked fish with a lure? You care to answer for the group?
I can just go ahead and say, yeah, it's not legal to keep. It gets very difficult to, I'm sure from a law enforcement standpoint, to know whether somebody was keeping it because it was gut hooked or they're just keeping it to keep it. So it's hard to differentiate that. So yeah, it's pretty cut and dry, not legal.
In regards to red ear stocking, it seems these fish disappear after 5 years or so. What's happening to these fish? Are they crossbreeding with bluegill, or what are you seeing? Jeff Jackson, do you want to take a stab at that since you have a lot of red ear in your district?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. It's actually a good question. I was just thinking back about where we've stocked red ear, and in our district, Wildwood, Jenny Newman, Prairie Queen, Flanagan, and Louisville too. We always we still see them. They're not a real high density fish population, but we always see some pretty decent fish, and they're kind of a background species. I would say they're also fairly difficult for anglers to catch. So the only lake that I can recall that we've seen some hybridization was at Prairie Queen, and that's kind of a mystery to us because we haven't really seen them in any other lakes where they've been hybridizing. But that is one instance where we've seen some hybridization. But again, haven't really seen them disappear, just at a lower density and kind of in a background species.
I don't know if Chris Starr is on here, or if Tony, you want to handle this one, or maybe Jeff Shuckman, but was calamus introduced to zebra mussels a few years back? And if so, how is that going to be managed?
There are no zebra mussels at Calamus. It's zebra mussel free at this point, and we do extensive sampling out there for both villagers and adults. And so far, we have not sampled anything. So if that word's out there, it's simply not true. But we monitor that lake very closely.
As far as here's another law enforcement one. Is there an overall strategy to increase enforcement, especially in populated areas where overharvest is evident?
Yeah, so that's a constant challenge or battle that we're dealing with. That can change from year to year and location to location and time of the year to the time of the year. But definitely we'll see different issues with that. Sometimes not even in populated areas, but other areas where the population of people goes to harvest fish. And with the advent of social media and everything else, the word gets out pretty quick on where the fish are biting. So we try and monitor some of that stuff, as well as pay attention to those calls and complaints that we get from the public about over harvest issues, as well as there's certain times of the year where, like, for example, walleye spawn and things like that, where fish are more vulnerable to those types of excessive harvest problems. So there's a variety of different approaches that we use to try and deal with that. And it just is a continually changing issue that we deal with the number of staff that we have across the state. There are basically 93 counties in Nebraska, and right now about 55 field officers. So we'll move those guys around on occasion to target some of those primary problem areas or activities as we are aware of them or made aware of them. So I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully at least a little bit.
Thank you. All right, Tony, will the blue catfish limits be increased this year, and how do populations look?
No, there's no plans for any changes to the blue catfish regulations. I think some of the guys on here could probably talk about specific reservoirs, but from a Missouri River standpoint, I know our Missouri River program, as well as just anecdotal information from anglers, have continued to see increased populations moving up the river, even north of the Platte River confluence. And then we have a number of other reservoirs where we have been intermittently stocking these blue catfish to create some diverse opportunities. And if some of the guys on here want to chime in with a few tidbits of blue catfish population characteristics in a specific water body, feel free to chime in.
I guess not, huh?
I can touch on, or Jordan, somebody can touch on the blue catfish that were stocked in our district at Pawnee and then some at Branched Oak. Those fish, we've had some up and downs on getting fish into the hatchery systems to stock, and so our populations are fairly low. There's slower growing fish, and the popularity of blue catfish, it seems like in the Midwest, has just continued to increase. And we hope people continue to be able to identify species correctly. That's always an issue we run into, but With the few fish that we got in the the increased angler popularity, and especially trying to catch large blue catfish right now, there's no plan to change anything in our district.
I can touch on the blue catfish in the Southwest too. Swanson and Medicine Creek, we've introduced the blue catfish to there, and our numbers have been up and down. We continue to monitor the populations very closely, so we can develop a trophy fishery, and we're starting to see some of those stockings produce fish over 35 inches. So we'll continue to request them and adjust those stocking rates as we move forward. But like Aaron touched on, sometimes availability within the hatcheries can be difficult just because of where we are and how those fish survive our winters, especially in those small hatchery ponds.
Okay. Does Game and Parks have any reaction to most of the Northeast and Southeast area bass clubs hosting their tournaments in Missouri and Iowa as opposed to Nebraska waters? Is this concerning, and is there anything being done to change this and to keep those funds from going out of state?
I can at least, I know Daryl deals a lot with tournament registrations and stuff, so he can chime in. But the biggest thing that we want to do for our anglers, and that's all anglers, is be able to provide a pretty even playing field. So we don't like the exceptions and those sort of things to come into play, because we have a lot of people out there with a lot of diverse interests as far as their different how they want to angle, and we just haven't taken that upon ourselves to make certain exceptions for a small percentage of anglers.
This is kind of for the Southeast guys and probably for you, Tony. It's been noted that Wildwood is the lake in Southeast Nebraska to go to for catfish. If Game and Parks is apt to start sending people out there, might you consider increased education efforts concerning catch and release?
I might be able to chime in on that too. We have made sure that we've maintained our signage on the reservoir, and I think just seeing the trophy potential that we have in the reservoir is some indication that we've had pretty good compliance from our anglers on this reservoir. There definitely is some harvest that goes on there. That might be more of a law enforcement question too, but from our standpoint, we are seeing some trophy catfish in there. Actually, it's one of the highest reservoirs we see in the Southeast for Master Angler Award. So
just to add on to what Jeff said too, is we do continuously monitor that with our gill nets, and we haven't seen much of a change in size structure or catch rates out there. Everything fluctuates a little bit, but obviously it seems that the stocking that we got going on is at least maintaining that trophy fishery, even with like Jeff said, there is some harvest that probably goes on out there, but at this point, we'll continue to monitor it, and if we start seeing big changes, we'll address it.
In the spring and summer of 2020, there was a lot of algae growth along the shores of Prairie Queen and Walnut Creek. What caused that? And is there any way that we can reduce it? And do you think it's going to be a problem again this year?
I can take it, Jeff, if you want. So one thing that you'll probably notice in a lot of the lakes in the Southeast District is curly leaf pondweed growing up in the spring in a lot of the metro lakes and a lot of the Salt Valley lakes. Daryl just had a pretty good blog just the other day about eutrophication on in our water bodies, and over time, as water comes in and it brings sediment in, and that stuff gets stuck or nutrients into the sediment, certain plants will absorb that, use that nutrient to grow. Curly leaf is one of the biggest ones we have in the Omaha area. And once you get into that late spring, early summer, as that curly leaf dies back, it releases a lot of that nutrient and phosphorus and nitrogen. And what happens is that algae, it's but the perfect time for algae growth to start going, and whatever's there to absorb that nutrient, whether it falls back into the sediment or it's used by the algae. And in this case, that's the major problem we have with all of our algae blooms in a lot of the state. But in the Southeast District, as soon as that curly leaf starts to die back, that's when we start seeing the majority of our algal blooms. I hope that answers that. I would expect it, on a year-to-year basis. It just all depends on what's out there and a lot of different environmental factors of how much algae is going to start growing. But we're always going to have some algae in all of our lakes midsummer.
This might be a good one for you, Dean. So down in Kansas, their senior citizen fishing permit is allowed at age 65. Why is Nebraska's not until age 69?
That's something that's set normally in statute, and this is something it's been 65 for veterans for 30 to 40 years probably, and it used to be 70 and over for seniors. Now it's 69 and over. We've adjusted it down 1 year, but that's something that has been set, and why it's different in different states, I don't know. It's based on what was passed years and years ago, probably.
Okay. Jeff Shuckman, why are the northern pike numbers so low at the Calamus?
Well, as that reservoir is aged and changed, we no longer have the northern pike spawning habitat that we used to have. Northern pike are spawning up the river more in some of the marshes up there and recruiting down to the reservoir. And we've got fairly low numbers in there now. We have tried some supplemental stocking out there with limited results. And I don't know if we'll do much more of that. However, on the flip side, the muskie stockings have been highly successful. And we've developed quite a muskie population out there that anglers target throughout the spring and summer, and can catch quite a few. So we're real happy about that. So I don't know if we can get the northern pike numbers up to where they were. It won't even be close to where it was before, just because of habitat changes. And one of the things that the Calamus, and I'll talk about this a little bit more on Tuesday night, is, there's sedimentation issues out there now. With all of our reservoirs, there can be sedimentation issues. And we're seeing a lot of sediment, a lot of sand coming down that Calamus River, which is a function of a sand hills river. That's what they do, is they transport sand and they meander. And one thing we need to do is continue working with some entities, particularly Bureau of Reclamation that owns that particular lake, and come up with some kind of a plan for the input of sediment or to stop the input of sediment out there. But I think that in the upper end of the reservoir, you know, has impacted any type of natural northern pike recruitment that we've had in the past too. So might be a difficult thing to get those pike numbers back up, but enjoy the muskie while we got them because they're thriving right now.
Tony, with regards to AIS and zebra mussels, could we look at implementing a simple exam for issuance of a sticker or for renewal at the DMV for getting information out to those folks who don't understand the significance of AIS?
That's an interesting idea. It's something that I hadn't thought of before. I'm not sure all the logistics that would need to be worked out for something like that, but man, we are always trying to find ways to get this information out, especially to, you know, a lot of our anglers, you know, are conservation minded and are in the know on these things. However, there's some that aren't, and then there's some that are some folks that are strictly just power boaters that could potentially be the highest risk sort of individuals. And so finding different ways to educate or even make them know the information isn't a bad idea. So thanks for the comment. We haven't looked into it before, but we're definitely up for trying different things. So appreciate it.
Okay. I'm gonna see if Daryl Bauer's awake on here. Has there ever been a discussion about expanding our master angler program, for instance, including a few fish that aren't on the list, such as tiger trout? Also, Iowa has a pretty fun database that shows how many species people have caught and how many of each species. And so people can go on there and look it up.
Well, I'll take these in parts. Tiger trout, just kind of been waiting to see how high the state record goes before we set master angler minimums on tiger trout, because we've had bigger and bigger tiger trout caught every year for the last several years. So I've kind of been stalling on that before we set a minimum for master angler tiger trout. We do have a first fish certificate you can find on our webpage. So we do already have that available. You can play around with that if you want to. For example, you know, I could put Jordan's picture on it and give him a bad time about, you know, the first 6-inch largemouth bass he caught or something like that. The database idea, I love. I've been on a campaign for that for years. We had a bid database years ago on our webpage. It was clunky. It never was very user-friendly. And when we did new webpage, it went away. I've been campaigning for a new user-friendly searchable database since then. I will keep campaigning. We do have some records that have been digitized that we didn't have in the past. So I'll see if we can, you know, get some IT person interested in that project, and maybe someday we'll have a database online that people can look at again.
Thanks, Daryl. Here's a general pike question. Pike numbers seem to be way down in many mid-Nebraska lakes over the past 5 years. Any ideas why that may be? Tony or any of our biologists out there that manage pike waters?
It's hard to know exactly which waters they're talking about. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why we see pike numbers fluctuate and decline and stay down. And a few of those are like what Jeff Schuckman mentioned before, just change of habitat conditions. If it's a reservoir setting, reservoir's age, they they sediment in, there's not as much abundant aquatic vegetation growth going on. So it limits some of that habitat. Another thing that can happen within some of our sandhills lakes is carp infestations. When we have introductions of common carp, we see that inverse relationship where the carp are detrimental to the vegetation in the water body, and also recruitment of northern pike, and so you start to see the decline in pike as you see the increase in common carp. So those are a couple of the different things that can be going on with some of the lakes that you may be mentioning.
Hey,
Hey,
guys.
this is Andy Glidden. I just wanted to chime in a little bit on the pike deal. Folks have to remember that pike are a cool water fish, and most of these sandhills lakes are just borderline deep enough that not as a matter of a winter kill, but they just get hot in the summer. So we're kind of as far south as what pike can have a self-sustaining population. And so if we get into drought years and things are dry and shallow, then they're going to have a hard time. So just my 2 cents.
Hey guys, if I can enter in a little bit too, if people don't tune into our presentation tomorrow night, I just want to talk a little bit about Goose Lake, because the changes in habitat, Tony, you mentioned the carp is a driving factor in a lot of these sandhill lakes. Goose Lake in Holt County has been one of the go-to pike lakes in the state, in this half of the state anyway, for quite a while, and it certainly is when we keep the carp out of it. And right now we've got some high carp densities out there, which influences the water quality, which influences the pike reproduction, and we've gone from 80 to 90 pike per net in our spring frame nets down to 2 per net in our spring frame nets. And the handwriting's been on the wall that when we get some low water levels, we need to renovate again, get the carp out and bring that lake back online and restore that pike fishery. So there are just a lot of factors with pike, and Andy's got a point. We're borderline a lot of our lakes with water temperature, but we can grow pike. They grow fast. They don't live a long time, but we can grow pike in some of our lakes when the conditions are right. And you can be rest assured, when we have the opportunity, we're gonna create those pike fisheries again, because we realize our anglers want that type of fishery, and very good recreational aspect to the fishery to go catch pike, in addition to be a very good eating fish. So we'll restore some of those pike fisheries again as we get a chance. Thanks.
All right, thanks, guys. Here's one about Standing Bear. Are there any plans to renovate Standing Bear? Jeff, you wanna handle that one?
Sure. So originally we planned on doing some work on Standing Bear this fall. With Cunningham Reservoir still out of commission, we delayed that 1 year. So what we're looking at is a fall drawdown on Standing Bear this coming September. And the reason for that is the boat ramp is in horrible condition. So looking at renovating that, improving some shoreline access on the north side, and also adding some structure in the basin, like cedar trees and some underwater shoals. So that's the plan right now, and we would probably renovate that late this fall as far as the fishery.
All right. Kearney guys, so the Harlan Spillway Basin was drained and cleared of fish in 2019. How long after that takes place does it typically return to quality fishing that it had before?
This is Brad Newcomb and Kearney again. That fishery is largely dependent on releases from the reservoir, as most spillway fisheries are. And they recover quite quickly based on the amounts of water that are released from the reservoir. And we've had reports of people catching fish there already. We even had a minor fish kill this year based on some release rates pretty early in the year. So they recover quickly, and they depend a lot on releases from the reservoir. Again, that depends on several things, including reservoir levels and irrigation demands below the reservoir. And we've even had some years where it's a great cat fishery based on high flows in the Republican River below Harlan Reservoir, fish moving up through the actual spillway. So a lot of factors affect that fishery, but they recover pretty quickly. And that 19 renovation was part of an inspection on the dam that happens every 10 to 15 years. So that'll happen periodically, and that's something that's just part of the safety of the dam. So we expect that to be a normal fishery by now.
Thanks, Brad. All right, so this is maybe all the biologists want to touch briefly on this on their specific areas, but do fish populations of each species change very much from year to year? Specifically, so when we put out our fishing forecast, how much change would our anglers expect for the next fishing season?
I can take a little stab at it. No, speaking on the Southeast District, things can change pretty rapidly, you know, depending on a lot of different things when it comes to, you know, the amount of fish taken out by anglers or fish kills. There's a lot of different ways that it can change, but at the same time, some of our lakes with low fishing pressure kind of have the same population characteristics for a lot of consecutive years. So as with anything, you know, it all depends, but they definitely can change year to year, and they can change month to month sometimes too.
All right, I guess Aaron covered that for everybody. Thanks, Aaron. All right. So here's kind of another one for Southeast guys. Why do some lakes in Nebraska always incur a toxic blue-green algae problem in the summer, such as Iron Horse Trail? So this particular person bass fishes, and this is us a concern handling bass in the from that particular water body, or just a water body in general that has a toxic blue-green algae bloom going on.
I can maybe start on that. Aaron had a pretty good response earlier about Prairie Queen and Walnut Creek having some algae blooms after the curly leaf dies back, and that also occurs at Iron Horse Trail. I don't recall it having issues with toxic algae. Somebody else might be able to chime in and refresh my memory on that, but I think it's more, it just has pretty significant algae blooms after the algae dies back. I don't see that that's a concern as far as handling the bass. I think you always have to be cognizant of making sure you handle bass, especially during the summertime when a lot of those algae blooms are occurring.
Yeah, and I can touch a little bit more. Iron Horse does get some pretty severe algal blooms down in there, and it again touches on what I was talking about with nutrients coming in. But the when you're starting to talk about the toxic algae, it's not even actually an algae, it's a cyanobacteria that grows in certain lakes, and the toxic algae or harmful algal blooms are nationwide a pretty big concern. There's been a lot of work into studying these and why certain lakes or certain water bodies have a higher incurrence rate than others, and what is the perfect situation to grow that. But that's one thing. Our Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, they do all the monitoring for that. As for handling fish, if you're pulling fish out of stuff that looks like John Deere paint, I would make sure you wash your hands, so you don't, that the stuff's just going to give you a skin irritation. And so having some fresh water or just water that doesn't look like green paint would definitely be recommended. But as far as fishing and eating fish or anything out of those lakes with harmful algal blooms, the fish are safe to eat. There's no reason to stop fishing, I would say. So.
I would also add that keep your dog at home, or don't let them drink the water in the lake. It's very toxic to dogs because of their body size.
All right. So here is a question regarding zebra mussels. Has Game and Parks ever thought of experimenting and letting a zebra mussel population go, specifically regarding the Cunningham population? That reservoir was drained due to infestation of zebra mussels over there. So I guess a little bit about the philosophy of draining a reservoir versus not draining a reservoir.
So some of the background on Cunningham in particular, and I guess we could talk about Zarinsky as well, is that we had the opportunity at both of those water bodies to significantly impact and actually eliminate the zebra mussels just based on the outlet structures that these reservoirs had. And the size of the water bodies as well. And that's very uncommon in the aquatic invasive species or zebra mussel world. There's been, we can probably count on one hand, maybe Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been very few times in history where zebra mussels have been eliminated from water bodies. So we felt like it's one of those things where if you have the opportunity to do it, and that even though, Cunningham had a decent fishery at the time, we still were having, we were still having issues with common carp. We weren't meeting the potential for the Cunningham fishery that we could have. So it was one of those things. It was a joint decision, collaborative between the Army Corps of Engineers, the City of Omaha, the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission to implement that management strategy. One of those things that you let a zebra mussel population go is you have a definite vector or an origin site for those zebra mussels to go and go in a hole or a bait bucket or something to another water body. So you're by eliminating a source, you're kind of eliminating a spot of branching out for that population.
Yeah, and on that same token, my name is Chris Starr. I'm the Aquatic Invasive Species Program Manager. Eventually, that would increase that would negatively impact the fish population. So zebra mussels are prolific. They consume much of the lake's phytoplankton, which is what the zooplankton is based off of. And that's what all species of most aquatic life depend on, zooplankton, especially baby fish. So eventually, from the kind of the bottom up, it starves the lake of its nutrients and doesn't impact that fish population. So yeah, so it would have negatively impacted that fish population eventually. So.
Thanks, guys. All right, so Nebraska fishermen seem to make up a big number of non-resident anglers in South Dakota and Kansas. That seems to be a lot of tourism dollars that leave the state. Would there be funding available in the form of grants to help game and parks ramp up stuff that we do, such as stocking in our lakes to help us compete with surrounding states? Is there any funding available for that? Tony or Dean, do you or anybody else have any ideas on that?
This is Dean again. I'm not aware of any funding mechanisms that would be available for anything like that. Most tourism dollars are going for private businesses and encouraging people to come into the state for the various reasons. Part of it's a matter of what an individual wants. We manage our lakes in general for a quality fishery. And that aspect is different to different people. You know, what is a quality fishery? Is it size? Is it number? Is it how many you can harvest? Is it how many you catch? A variety of different reasons. And you're always going to have people that it's always greener on the other side of the fence, so to speak. So you never know for sure what every individual wants. And I would say that we have some of the best walleye fishing in the Midwest right here. And people still decide to go to South Dakota. It's a matter of preference on what they want. And some cases it's guide service. Some cases it's the opportunities to go someplace else. So it's kind of a catch-22, so to speak, as far as what people want. And, you know, Kansas has some liberal regulations as well as South Dakota. South Dakota just implemented a number of very liberal regulations on certain species. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out down the road after a few years. But right now, no, I don't know of any grants available, and I'm not sure that stocking more fish is always the answer, as much as making sure we have proper habitat, good opportunities, as more of a indicator of where our fisheries is than just dumping more fish into a lake.
All right, well, last question here. Would Game and Parks ever consider placing bounty payments on carp or other AIS as opposed to other methods of use to eliminate the species that may impact game fish?
I can take that one. So there's been some successful bounty type system set up, but it's in other areas for Asian carp in particular, and black carp. And it's mainly as a distribution tool. It's not it hasn't been utilized as a way to actually affect populations and eliminate species and help game fish. It's been more this black carp bounty type system in the Mississippi River has been a way for anglers and commercial fishermen to actually help resource agencies determine the spread and the distribution of a fish species. Most of our aquatic invasive species and invasive species that are fish species are to a point that biologically, even with a lot of anglers out there harvesting these individuals and getting paid for them and that sort of thing, we wouldn't be able to meaningfully impact the populations. So we haven't discussed it a whole lot. There hasn't been a lot of push towards that. However, you know, we're starting to conduct more and more of this Asian carp research. And if we can pinpoint certain areas of congregations and potential control mechanisms, more of the commercial and large fishing outfits are likely to be the option. At least that's what has worked well in the past for other resource agencies.
All right, that's all of our submitted questions in the chat. I know we had some that were submitted prior to the meeting, and we will get back to you via email to those individuals. We have ran out of time today during the live portion, and so we will get those addressed to those individuals here rather soon.
Jordan, just one little quick comment. I want to thank the Cambridge Public Schools for participating. They had a high school class, wildlife class, participate. Really appreciate their instructor allowing their students to do that. And I want to thank everybody for participating. Tony?
Yeah, this is one of those things that Dean mentioned at the start is very valuable for us as a agency and as a fisheries division to hear from our anglers and our people out utilizing the resource. And a lot of the things that we've done in the past have been direct responses to angler feedback. So we really appreciate the interaction with everybody today. And once again, take a look and register for the other meetings for more information on specific projects in your district.